Man, I sure hope Enzo's isn't in the center of town, or they're gonna have to have date night somewhere else. Yes, welcome to my spoiler discussion of Stranger Things 4, Part 2. Where get this. So in the show, they're like, do we call him Vecna, Henry, or One? And they couldn't decide, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, I can't choose either because he really is all those things. They all make up this villain. So I was like, I can't write that out constantly in my notes here because they're copious. So I abbreviated it to VH1. I wonder if that's intentional. That's hilarious to me, and I wish that they would call him VH1 on the show. Does that make 11 MTV? I just think that's hilarious. All right, so happy Stranger Things Day. I've got my t-shirt on, and I let the intro roll on episode 9. I have to say, this season, I've been hitting skip intro a couple of times, I must admit, because I've just been so excited to get to the story. But since I don't think we're going to get Stranger Things 5 for a while, and that, of course, is the final season, so I wanted to really marinate in Stranger Things. So I was like, let it roll, man. So I'm curious, do you always let the intro play, or do you sometimes hit skip intro? But I love it. I think Stranger Things, even if I was slightly a scooch disappointed in the finale, still have a lot of good things to say about it, though. I still really love this brand. But what a bummer of a season finale. Maybe that's why I'm struggling with my emotions. I would describe this part 2, like your favorite team getting into the finals, like the playoff game, but then watching them be absolutely obliterated by the competition to the point where you're like, how do we even get into the finals if we're so outmatched here? I mean, it was insane to watch it. It was brutal. And I suspect that was intentional on the part of the Duffer Brothers, but I think they might have made it a wee bit too brutal because it was tough to take, especially after we were doing so great for the first 7 games of the season. It was rough to watch ourselves faceplant like that. Now, I cried. I cried for Eddie. Oh boy, did I cry for Eddie. And I gotta tell you, I'm not even sure what he died for because they still lost. And I don't know how much time he really bought anybody because they were already in the house at that point. I don't know if those bat things would have come in and done anything. But so I put a poll out before these episodes dropped, and I said, who do you think's going to die? Because they were really telegraphing that it was going to be Steve. But some of you said, oh no, Grace, they're telegraphing it's going to be Eddie because he gave that speech about the fact that he wasn't a hero and that he'd run away when when that happened to Chrissy. And you were right. That was the telegraph. But while being the hero is important, I think so is living to fight another day. And while I think, of course, self-sacrifice for the ones you love is very honorable, I think it really sucked that I think it seemed like he died for nothing, except to maybe, I guess, clear his conscience. Also, he didn't even clear his name in town. I thought it was horrible that people were defacing the missing posters that his uncle was putting up. Dustin's speech to his uncle was very moving, cried through the whole thing. But I also felt like some anger the whole time, just like I felt Eddie's uncle was feeling, that he and Eddie really got a raw deal, which I guess is realistic to life, but man, it made Eddie's death cut particularly deep. But at least he went out in style, so metal indeed. And he got to wear Max's Michael Myers mask, which put a smile on my face when they did the jump cut to what mask did she have. And then they showed her wearing it later on in the flashback to her, her happier memories. But I think running around the trailer park where everybody knows Eddie lives and he's missing, he's a missing person or a person of interest that the police are after, I think anyone seeing an Eddie-sized person wearing Eddie-like clothes, wearing a Michael Myers mask running around the trailer park would have known that it was Eddie. So I don't know how helpful that was, but it was a funny moment. I also cried for Max to see her limbs twist like that, like we'd seen happen to other red shirts. I felt so bad for her. And then to see her tell Lucas, lying in his arms, that she couldn't see as she was dying and that she didn't want to die, even though she talked so much about maybe that she did, but when she was at the moment, and I know a lot of people had felt that her surviving in episode 4 was like really a good metaphor for people who change their mind about suicide and, the internal struggle that's there and then and choosing to live. So I wonder how people feel about the way things went down now with, putting this element in there and that she didn't want to die and she still did. I felt so bad for her. So did 11, who restarted her heart because she couldn't bear to lose her friend. And at the end of that montage of their friendship, focusing on, being, the girls being powerful women, being in charge of their own destinies. And the final line was, we make our own rules, which was very good because, that's what 11 was doing. But I had the feeling that Max, who Max was, had already left the building, so to speak, right? Because that's kind of the impression I got in the hospital scene when 11 goes into her mind again, into Max's mind again, and it's empty. There's not even like a comatose Max in her mind or a Max who 11 can't reach. It's just empty. And it made me kind of feel like maybe 11 had overstepped her bounds and that she had maybe put Max kind of on life support, so to speak, but that maybe Max, it was too late to save Max as a person, which is also devastating. Oh my gosh. I'm not sure how they should go with Max. I don't know if they should bring her back or not. But I love the character so much. Although I do think it's Will's turn now to shine again in Stranger Things 5, which we shall discuss. He really won me over with these 2 episodes, boy. Talk about going from 0 to 100. He was fantastic. But before we get to all the other awesome details of episode 8 and 9, what did I think of them overall? And I'm curious to hear your overall impression down below, although I'm sure you're also still processing it. There was a lot more talking than I had anticipated. I expected it to be wall-to-wall action because there was so much action in the first 7 episodes. Usually, you build to a lot of action to the end. It was weird to me that they had so much action up front and then they slowed down for a lot of talking at the end. I was like, that's weird, especially when you separate the final 2 episodes. You're like, oh, we came back for talking? Even the plan to catch VH1, love it, was smart. It was a smart plan, but not cinematically thrilling. Just something about it wasn't as exciting as the other action sequences this season. And I was surprised that the characters kept breaking off into smaller groups to have lots of little conversations, right? Like, that should have happened, I think, earlier in the season. I was like, oh, we're doing this now? Okay. I think those conversations and those breaks took a lot of the wind out of the final 2 episodes' sails. And I think it slowed the momentum of episodes 1 through 7, which was significant, down to like a crawl. Also, I've never seen so many people or characters jinx themselves when talking about future plans. You never talk about future plans when you're going into a dangerous scenario. For a show that's like an homage to all these classic movies and stuff, it's weird that the characters ignore those classic rules. Where's Jamie Kennedy from Screen when you need him to explain this to everybody? Everyone's like, you know what I want to do when we get out of here? I'm like, don't say it. So our setup for Stranger Things 5 is that VH1 got his 4 kills. He got the 4 chimes of his clock, the 4 portals, and the dam has broken, making Hawkins ground zero for the melding of dimensions. Like Ms. Marvel. If you're watching Ms. Marvel, you get that joke. But anyway, that final shot on the hillside with all those beautiful flowers, which had such vibrant colors, I was like, I've never seen a hillside so beautiful. I was like, that's some Hollywood magic for you right there. But giving way to a dead zone that was spreading what VH1 considers beautiful. VH1 never gets old. I love it. But anyway, that was a great final shot for the show, for this season. Now, speaking of VH1, I'm sorry that I ever found out it was Jamie Campbell Bower in that Vecna suit, because now I can't unsee it. I used to think he looked really cool, but now it just looks like he's wearing maybe it's the quality of the shots, maybe there's too many wide shots of Vecna, but he just looks like he's wearing a poorly awkward fitted bodysuit, like he's in a onesie with like really long little feet that he might trip over, right? With an oversized head and hand. I'm suddenly hyper aware that there's someone in a suit there. I don't like it. And he really does have bad skin, by the way. His face was hard to look at. I was like, you've been turned inside out. He's like, tell me about it. Why do you think I'm still pissed off? But anyway, when he was monologuing to 11, I was like, that looks like it hurts, VH1. I think the monologuing also took me out of the show a little bit. Everyone was taking their sweet time. Like, VH1 and 11. Just go for the kill. Nobody has to watch anything. Nobody has to watch Bubkiss. I guess Papa didn't host a lot of movie nights, or they both would have known how it usually goes down when you start monologuing. I was like, why does 11 need to be pep talked? I mean, this is the end. Max is going to die. I would think that would be motivation enough, but I guess Mike did have to say he loved her at some point. There were a couple of times when the show's had some brilliant writing for these last 2 episodes, but there were a couple of times where you could see it coming a mile away, including some of the lines, like, that was a miracle, then we better not waste it. And if you know, don't miss, stuff like that. I don't like people who shout lines out at the screen, before they happen. I'm like, just let the show play, thank you very much. But even here, it was so obvious. I found myself, at least in my mind, doing it a little bit. And I was like, I can't believe they actually did that obvious line. But then anyway, like for instance, when Nancy went full Ripley on VH1, which was pretty darn cool. When he was on fire, I was like, that is a neat visual. But I was like, shoot him in the head, Nancy. What's with these two shooting him in the shoulder shots? The whole reason she did a sawed-off shotgun was so she wouldn't miss. I mean, Thanos knows it. Go for the head. I mean, and then of course, no shit, Sherlock, his body disappeared. I mean, it's like Michael Myers all over again. Speaking of Michael Myers in one of the last Halloween movies, when you gotta like put him in a blender and hit liquid puree, and then still probably do an exorcism. All right, I will feel very bad also if we never get to see VH1 in human form again. I'm like, Jamie Campbell Bower, I miss you and your awesome hair. And I'm really hoping that as the dimensions collide and he heals, maybe after they burned him, he's able to somehow restore himself at least a little bit. I'll even take how he looked during his upside down hike. I was like, that's cool. I'll take this halfway point. So yes, it's been VH1 all along. He created the Mind Flayer, which looks like a spider because of course he loved spiders. And he loves his new home in the upside down so much, he wants to share it with everyone. And while he once thought he and Eleven could rule together, now he just wants her powers. And that's what's been going on. He not only wants to meld the dimensions, but he wants to absorb Eleven. And that's what Papa explains, that when VH1 kills, he consumes. But not just the victim. He consumes what the victim was, what they are now, and what they will be, which means he would take Eleven's powers even beyond the level that she's been able to get to so far. Ah, Papa, so evil, yet so right. He was correct. She was not prepared to face VH1. And that led to not only her first loss, but a devastating one. And now Papa is dead, so who shall train her? By the way, I was super disappointed that after all the hype, Eleven never really powered up this season. I thought she would at least be levitating around Magneto style towards the end, but still she was just doing that hand gesture, which is a little funny, especially when you think about how it can also stop a velociraptor. I'm like, enough with the hand, is she gonna power up or what? I mean, so what if she lifted Nina? I thought she was gonna crush it like a Coke can, but maybe she felt that was too mean because Nina was kind of expensive. I would have crushed it like a Coke can. Coke, I wonder how much Coke paid, by the way. They're not only the Coke can, but they're the spinning bottle too. They're like, yes, Coke. I also didn't think her taking out that helicopter was as cool as it maybe should have been, right? Especially since it was derivative of Hopper blowing up the prison tool shed earlier this very season. Although maybe that was intentional, like father, like daughter, right? But one of them has superpowers and should have a big explosion. But let's take a moment to appreciate Sherman Augustus's swagger, by the way, as General Sullivan. He looked so cool. He walked around that secret base like a boss. And I loved his line to Paul Reiser when he said, are mommy and daddy fighting? I was like, you nailed it. Great burn, General Sullivan. I did think that also when it comes to Papa and Eleven, they really captured the dynamics of an abusive relationship quite well. And that Papa truly believed he was doing the right thing. And he felt that he loved Eleven, although it was clear that he loved her more as an extension of himself than as her own person. And he was so dangerous. When she was like letting him caress her when he lay dying, I was like, he's gonna shiv you, Eleven. Don't get anywhere near him. I did not trust him up until his dying breath. And also VH1 pointed out that Papa sought greatness through others. So his children were, all he cared about were them being, his legacy. So I'm very glad that while Eleven didn't twist the knife, metaphorically speaking, when they had their final conversation, she also did not give him closure. I was glad that she didn't do that, and she left him alone to die, and he just watched her drive off. I don't even know if he's totally dead, by the way. I didn't see him dead for sure. They just left his body in the sand, and I wouldn't be surprised if General Sullivan scooped him up, fixed him up, and said, now you're working for me. Maybe that is who will train Eleven. He'll be like, told ya, in Stranger Things 5. But she will get another chance to fight VH1. I love saying that. Which should be spectacular, as Netflix's huge financial investment in this season, $30 million an episode, has paid off with record-breaking viewership. So let's write another big check and go to town, everybody. And they'll need all that money because all of Stranger Things 5 is going to take place in the Upside Down. Why was everyone touching that snow? I was like, get inside. You don't know what that is. But anyway, the center of town looked pretty great with half the library missing. I didn't even care that it was probably CGI. I was like, that's a cool graphic. And I also liked everyone driving out of town. Also, when they were driving by and Will spotted that boy, I was like, hey, Will, there are other fish in the sea. Go ask that guy what his name is. But anyway, during all that pandemonium, there wasn't one shot of Rob Morgan as the new sheriff. I thought that was a little weird. So anyway, Will, back in Hawkins, can feel VH1. He's still connected. As we know, it's a hive mind. So that means he's connected to VH1. And VH1 is that queen bee. Or should I say, queen bitch. Very manipulative. And so we all can see that Will is in a very vulnerable place right now. Huge kudos, by the way, to Noah Schnapp for his speech to Mike in the van about what it's like to be different and to feel like a mistake. That was an incredible scene. I was like, oh my God. And then the way he turned away to quite quietly into his hand. No way Mike did. Is Mike really that obtuse that he doesn't hear Will choking on his own tears? That was devastating. I was like, let's just pull over and give Will a hug. I think that Max was the heart of Stranger Things 4, but I think there's a very strong chance we're going to circle back to Will for Stranger Things 5. Will really has nothing going on in his dimension, and maybe he'd feel better in the Upside Down too. He's already spent some time there at VH1's side. Why didn't VH1 want to kill him? Maybe VH1 has plans for him. I think VH1 might have sensed that Will was different all along, which is why he chose him. He looks for outsiders. And I got to tell you, I think there's a chance Will and VH1 could really hit it off, especially if maybe VH1 can go back to looking somewhat human again, like a dark prince. I mean, he can sashay down that dead mountainside and look a lot like Prince Charming, I think. I wasn't feeling Will at the beginning of this season, but he really did level up. I mean, he felt like a third wheel, which of course that's how he was feeling. But he has shined in these final 2 episodes. I just thought it was incredible. I thought it was very sweet that his older brother Jonathan can clearly see what's going on, and he tries to reach out to him, but I still didn't go. I can understand that maybe Jonathan feels Will needs to open up to him and to say and to come out. But I think Jonathan maybe needs to push his brother just a little bit harder because Will is really struggling, and I think Jonathan still is not going as far as he should, and he's not going as far as he should with Nancy either. He's still lying to her about college. And I don't think Nancy is a fit with Jonathan or Steve, by the way. I don't see her getting high with Jonathan and Argyle, and I don't see her packing up on Winnebago to go on a family vacations with Steve, which just underscores that not everyone meets their soulmate in high school, and I think Nancy should keep looking, quite frankly. I mean, these are very nice guys, but just not a fit. My other feels or observations for part 2. Jason versus Lucas really resonated with all that's going on right now in the United States. And what was that other guy thinking attacking Erica? That was tough to watch. And also with the trip to the war zone, I was like, man, this is ripped from the headlines. I think the writers were a little bit too aggressive with the Angry Hicks line that they kept repeating because some people feel that they need to protect themselves. I mean, you try living in the middle of nowhere. It's scary, right? So some people, of course, are ridiculous who feel they need to protect themselves. But some people, like even our heroes, really do need that protection. And so I thought it was a little hypocritical for them to make fun of everybody in that store, yet they were in that store too. I'd be like, I could see myself going to that store to pick up some mace. And I think you need protection not just from the Upside Down, but from the basketball team. Oh, the basketball team. Wow. I was thinking for their mission, I was like, you guys, because I was worried who was going to die this season. And I was like, you do not have any red shirts. You guys should go find that basketball team and say, hey, do you want to team up? If only Jason would have listened, though. I mean, I think he did have good leadership qualities, and I can understand how badly he was affected by his girlfriend's death. And his death, boy, wow, the way he melted in half when the rift opened up, I mean, that was like some Indiana Jones stuff. That was great. I hope that there's a takeaway for some people watching this show that, you might not know everything. So it doesn't hurt to at least listen to what the other side is saying. And then maybe the other side will listen to you because you never know where a good idea is going to come from. I mean, look how many times Argyle saved the day in these final 2 episodes. He found Nina, and he also made that mind battle happen for his new little superhero friend. I mean, that's not only were the scenes great, but the dialogue was inspired. The whole Surfer Boy pizza shop scenario with turning the freezer into a deprivation tank, inspired. Absolutely loved it. And so, maybe Jason could have ended up helping. Jason might feel that he's being replaced or that he's not wanted in this new group that's the new order of power. But he took himself out of the mix instead of being like, hey, what's going on over here? I'd like to be a part of the group too. I loved his exchange with Lucas. That was great writing when he said, I never should have let you in. And Lucas said, and I never should have knocked. I was like, oh, that was great. But not all sadness. This is also a very romantic 2 episodes. More kissing going on here than the whole rest of the whole Stranger Things seasons. Hopper's Russian prison makeover really agrees with him. I was like, looking pretty smoking there, Hopper. And it was great to see him and Joyce finally get together. I was like, anytime in a movie 2 characters have to change clothes, you know something's going to happen. But besides them finally getting together, I thought that the Russian storyline didn't just slow to a crawl, but came to a dead stop. I mean, Murray, one of my favorites, got totally benched, man. I was sad. But I hope Dimitri got to come to America. We couldn't save Alexei, but maybe we saved Dimitri. I was like, I wish they showed him. I mean, where's he going to go? I wish he'd come to Hawkins too. I mean, I can see maybe him not wanting to come to Hawkins right now, but come on, Dimitri. I think he's a great character. I thought Max and Lucas's scenes were also very romantic as well. And Max is so lucky to have Lucas, and I think she knows it, as he keeps fighting for her again and again and again. She's going through a lot. I mean, he even I think respectfully, stands up and, still tries to talk to her even when she's pushing him away. I mean, there's a toxic way to do that that you definitely should not do, but I like that he fights for them. I think that's really touching. I didn't care for Steve and Nancy's conversations, though, because they're so obviously wrong for each other. I mean, I just feel bad they're wasting each other's time, and I'm like, you're just going to get hurt again, because you're not a match. Although I did like Steve's monologue about needing someone to knock some sense into him, which made me realize that that's why Robin is such a good friend for him. And Robin and Vickie, I definitely see sparks there, and so does Steve. Coming out is complicated, as Robin has talked about, especially in the 1980s. And Will is also making that very clear. So I think Vickie, we don't know what's going on with Vickie. Maybe she's bi, right? But here's the thing. Nobody casually mentions that they've broken up with someone else when they're talking to someone who clearly has a crush on them. You only do that to let that person know you are not only available, but that you're interested. So I think Robin was sensing that. Then finally, of course, Mike and Eleven. Mike, the heart of the group, or more should I say, so motivational speaker. Again, I couldn't believe that Eleven needed a pep talk at that moment. And I'm not sure why Will said that Eleven commissioned that painting, because in episode 1, she was saying he didn't know he was painting it for. Maybe he was painting it for someone he had a crush on. When I think back at it, that was actually Eleven's letter to Mike, so maybe she was just covering up so that he wouldn't guess about the painting. But then why mention the painting at all? Why not, why tell Mike that Will's painting anything if it's a surprise? So I don't know what was happening there. Maybe Will made that up to cover for the painting? I don't know. It was a nice painting. That was the Dungeons and Dragons dragon. Anyway, I still feel Mike does not have enough to do, but I am very happy that he told Eleven he loved her. I was like, this was the moment to do it, Mike, so good for you. So I didn't think Stranger Things Part 2 was quite as good as Part 1, but I'm still down for one final ride with Stranger Things 5, which looks to be a real doozy. So what did you think? Did you cry, and when? Did you think there was enough action? Do you want to see Jamie Campbell Bower again, or are you happy just seeing VH1? And also, are you now Team Will? And what are your thoughts about season 5, the final season? Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.